Welcome to this explainer on Teamcenter classification configuration. Look, if you've ever dealt with massive digital libraries, you know the exact pain of managing countless parts, components, and documents that just seem completely unrelated right up until you actually need them. Today, we're going to learn exactly how to transform those chaotic, unstructured data pools into highly structured, searchable data libraries that really drive product reuse. So whether you're a Teamcenter admin, a developer, or a PLM consultant, this training is going to give you the technical depth you need. Taking a quick look at today's agenda, we are covering the basics of classification, basic versus advanced functionality, installation planning, active workspace configuration, rich client administration, and finally, admin utilities and classes. Let's jump right into Section 1, Basics of Teamcenter Classification. So deploying classification really relies on two primary roles working closely together. First up, we've got the installer. Their job is to set up the initial system architecture, install the required features, and make sure the server and client components are actually talking to each other. Then you've got the administrator. The admin is the one who expertly crafts the classification hierarchy itself, building the classes, defining attributes, and setting up that precise standard taxonomy your business users will leverage to actually find and reuse objects. Moving right along to Section 2, Basic versus Advanced Functionality. Now, before you install a single thing, you absolutely have to define your strategy. With Teamcenter classification, you're dealing with basic data and advanced data. Are you already using basic classification in the Teamcenter Rich client and you just want to expose that data in Active Workspace? Or are you looking to migrate entirely to advanced classification? Maybe you even need a hybrid model, using both at the exact same time. By figuring out your end goal right here, you dictate exactly which components you're going to need to install next. Which brings us to Section 3, Installation Planning and Methods. Your first option is using the Teamcenter Deployment Center. Honestly, if you go this route, the installation is super streamlined. You just log on, select your target environment, and head over to the Applications task. From there, it's just searching for and adding specific packages. So if you mapped out a traditional basic classification scenario for the web, you'd ensure classification Active Workspace is applied. Need a hybrid model? You just add the advanced classification package as well. Easy enough. Alternatively, you might be using the traditional Teamcenter Environment Manager, or TEM. Now, this process requires a bit more manual precision. You'll navigate over to the Features panel and manually pinpoint the exact server extensions and client features that match your setup. For instance, to use full-featured classification with traditional data, you've got to explicitly check the boxes for the classification client, the classification server extension, and, this is crucial, the presentation layer for the next-generation classification server. All right, Section 4, Active Workspace Configuration. So let's talk about that presentation layer, because it's an absolute game changer. In Active Workspace, the presentation layer gives you way more flexibility than the legacy setup. It essentially replaces the traditional basic classification storage hierarchy. It is the required foundation for implementing advanced classification standard taxonomy, or CST, and classification libraries. Basically, it lets your system handle traditional features and advanced library management features at the exact same time without any conflicts. Now, when you're setting up Active Workspace, administrators don't have to start from scratch, which is great. You can jumpstart the whole process by importing prepackaged hierarchy templates for things like ECAD, MCAD, and routing data. And here's a critical technical tip for you consultants out there. If you're configuring attribute optimization for basic classification data, you absolutely must set this at the class level within the rich client. Active Workspace does not respect attribute optimization set in the legacy attribute dictionary. Oh, and remember, all your hierarchy definitions, nodes, classes, properties, keylobs, those are managed strictly through the classification manager tile in the Active Admin workspace. As you're tuning your system for modern capabilities, you'll want to pay close attention to this specific preference. CLS_AI_query_object_type. This setting is absolutely essential because it dictates exactly what type of data is going to be included when training your classification AI. Only objects of that given type and its children are included. If you just leave it blank, well, the system defaults to workspace object, and depending on your setup, that might cast way too wide a net for your performance and data governance needs. Let's pivot to Section 5, Rich Client Administration. Okay, think about the ICS_classifiable_types preference. This is a classic troubleshooting scenario. Say your business users are complaining that they can't classify a new custom item type. This preference right here is the very first place you should look. If a business object type isn't explicitly listed in this preference string, the users simply won't even see the send to classification command when they right-click an object.
It literally completely governs what can enter your classification workflow.
And finally, Section 6, Admin Utilities and Classes.
Teamcenter gives you some incredibly powerful back-end admin utilities that you run directly from the command line. The i6 utility is basically your workhorse for bulk importing classification data like classes, attributes, and keylobs. Then, when you need to programmatically associate your classification objects, your ICOs, with actual workspace objects based on item IDs, you're going to use i6 Connect. And for those enterprise deployments, SML utility is essential. It makes sure your shared classification hierarchy definitions stay perfectly synchronized across multiple physical sites. Now, when you're actually building out your node and class hierarchy, you're going to rely heavily on abstract classes. Think of them almost like organizational folders that just hold rules. You use abstract classes to efficiently push common, shared attributes down to child elements via inheritance. But, and this is key, you never actually store a physical part or workspace object directly inside an abstract class. Storage classes, on the other hand, are the actual end-of-the-branch containers. This is where your workspace objects actively live. Storage classes inherit all the attributes from their parent abstract classes, sure, but they can also hold their own unique attributes, provided, of course, they aren't designated as a parent to yet another class further down the line. So putting it all together, think about a standard hierarchy tree in Teamcenter. You've got broad categories up top like assemblies and components. These are acting as your abstract classes, collecting all that common metadata. But as you drill down deeper, say into baseplate, and finally land on rectangular baseplate or round baseplate, you've arrived at the storage classes. That's exactly how abstract and storage classes work together to turn a chaotic digital library into a highly efficient, rapidly searchable taxonomy. After seeing the depth of architectural control available through both active workspace and the rich client, from the presentation layer right down to those advanced command line utilities, it's definitely time to evaluate your own environment. Is your current classification configuration fully optimizing your organization's potential for data reuse? Or is it maybe time to refine your taxonomy and preferences to really empower your business users? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy classifying!